was a howling mess, and Manizheh had fallen to her knees, begging Ghassan for mercy. When he finally granted it, he'd been even angrier at her tears than he'd been at her initial refusal. "I wanted things to be different between us," he'd said accusingly. "You shouldn't have humiliated me." She took in a sharp breath at the memory. "He's dead," she reminded herself. Manizheh had stared at Ghassan's bloody corpse, committing the sight to memory, trying to assure herself that her tormentor was truly gone. But she wouldn't have him burned. Not yet. She intended to examine his body further, hoping for clues as to how he'd possessed Suleiman's seal. Manizheh hadn't missed that his heart had been removed, carved from his chest with surgical precision and making it clear who'd done the removing. Part of her was grateful. Despite what she'd told Nahri, Manizheh knew almost nothing about how the seal ring was passed to another. And now, because of Nahri, Manizheh knew the first step after finding them would be to cut out the heart of Nahri's djinn prince. Manizheh returned her gaze to the city. It was startlingly quiet, adding an eerie facade to the entire experience. Daevabad might have been a kingdom at peace in the dead of night, safe and still under the helm of its rightful guardians. A lie a distant wail betrayed. The cries were otherwise fading, the violence of the night giving way to sheer shock and terror. Frightened people, hunted people, didn't scream. They hid, hunkering down with their loved ones in whatever shelter they could find, praying the darkness might pass them by. Everyone in Daevabad knew what happened when cities fell. They were raised on stories of vengeance and their enemies' rapacity. Depending on their roots, they were told hair-raising tales of Zaidi al-Qahtani's violent conquest of Daevabad, Dara Afshin's scourging of Qaizi, or the innumerable sacks of human cities. No, there wouldn't be screaming. Daevabad's people would be hiding, weeping silently as they clutched their children close. The sudden loss of their magic only one more tragedy this night. They are going to think another Suleiman has come. It was the conclusion any sensible person would arrive at. Had Suleiman's great judgment not started with the stripping of their ancestors' magic? They probably expected to see their lives shattered and their families torn apart as they were forced to toil for another human master, powerless to fight back. Powerless. Manizheh pressed her palms harder against the cold stone, aching to feel the palace's magic, to conjure dancing flames or the shimmer of smoke. It seemed impossible that her abilities were gone, and she could only imagine the injuries piling up in the infirmary, injuries she now couldn't heal. For a woman who'd endured the ripping away of everything she loved, the shy country noble she might have married, the dark-eyed infant whose weight in her arms she'd yearned to feel again, the brother she'd betrayed, her very dignity as she bowed before the Qahtanis year after year. The loss of her abilities was the worst. Her magic was her life, her soul, the power beneath the strength that had enabled her to survive everything else. Perhaps an apt price to pay, then, for using healing magic to kill, a voice whispered in her head. Manizheh pushed it away. Such doubt wouldn't help her or her people right now. Instead, she'd lean on anger, the fury that coursed in her when she watched years of planning be upended by a quick-fingered Shafit girl. Nahri. The defiance in her dark eyes, the slight, almost rueful shrug as she shoved their family's most cherished treasure onto the finger of an unworthy sandfly. I would have given you everything, child.